Not all comic book characters start off as heroic individuals. Post-Golden Age, we began to see the introduction of more nuanced individuals, or characters taking more nuanced directions, with some villains reforming or dabbling in anti-hero territory. Today we are taking a closer look at a handful of those characters with our list of the top 10 superheroes who started as villains. Now be sure you all stick around to the end of our list, we've got some bonus content coming up for y'all and it should be a hoot. So with that in mind, let's get to it. Starting us off in at number 10, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. Let's begin our list with a double whammy. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, the mutant twins who went from Magneto's hench peeps to members of the Avengers. Quite the jump, isn't it? When they were first introduced, the twins were saved from an angry mob by Magneto, who would then later turn out to be their real father. Magneto recruited them to his Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, without them knowing that they were his dad at that point. It was something that Wanda and Pietro did reluctantly, wanting to pay their debt to the man who saved their lives. Eventually though, when the Brotherhood would disband and Magneto was incapacitated, the two would end up joining up with the Avengers, feeling that their debt to the Master of Magnetism was now paid. Now the two haven't been shy when it comes to dabbling into morally grey areas though. Both have pulled off some subjectively sinister stuff after their time with the Avengers. Scarlet Witch has actually killed a bunch of the Avengers, then depowered most of the mutant population, and also has changed the fabric of reality, which, to be fair, can be kinda chopped up to her mental health problems. Whereas Quicksilver has a tendency to act quite selfishly. That's not to say that they aren't generally looking out for the greater good, they're just both complex individuals. Moving on to number 9, Falcon. For a character who is generally seen as being the noble pal and peer of Captain America's, and has also donned the Captain America mantle himself, it may be surprising to some of you unfamiliar with his history that Falcon, aka Sam Wilson, used to be a bit of a bad guy. Or rather, an antagonist. Growing up in Harlem, New York, both Sam's parents were murdered within 2 years of one another. Consumed by his anger at the world, he gave up all the volunteer work that he had been doing in his community and instead moved to LA, where he began a life of crime, joining up with a gang. While on his way to a score in Rio de Janeiro, the plane that he was on crashed on Exile Island, which is where he meets both Red Wing, his Falcon, and eventually Captain America. Now Exile Island was populated with a group called the Exiles who had worked with Red Skull during World War II. This whole encounter changed his life for the better. And at 8, Hawkeye. Hawkeye Clint Barton wasn't always the shining example of superheroism that he is today. Created by Stan Lee and Don Heck in 1964, he played the role of a villain in Tales of Suspense issue 57, as a foe of Tony Stark's Iron Man, although a reluctant foe, making 2 more appearances as an antagonist through to 1965 in the same series. Now that didn't last long. He would become a member of the Avengers with the team's second iteration, in Avengers issue 16 in that same year. So, what was his deal? Well, Clint had lost his parents at a young age and ended up joining the Carson Carnival of Traveling Wonders after a 6-year stint in an orphanage alongside his brother Barney. After a falling out with the members of the carnival who were up to criminal activities, he left and joined another circus. Inspired by Iron Man's costume heroics, he tried out the life of a vigilante for a while, but on his first outing, he was accused of theft and therefore branded a criminal. He ended up on the run, where he met Black Widow, fell in love with her, and then aided her in attempts to steal tech from Stark. After Black Widow was injured and disappeared on him, he decided he would become a straight shooter, so to speak, which eventually led to him joining up with Earth's mightiest heroes. Moving on to number 7, Vision. When the Vision first appeared in the Avengers issue 57 in 1968, he was the creation of the evil sentient robot Ultron, an android who, in the comics, was crafted by Hank Pym. Now Vision was created as a means to attack Pym and his wife at the time, Janet Van Dyne, aka the Wasp. Vision is sent to lead the Avengers into a trap, with Janet encountering him first, describing the nameless android as a Vision, hence where his name came from. Janet's actually kinda got a thing for naming stuff, hasn't she? She was the one who named the Avengers after all. But luckily the Avengers managed to win Vision over, with Vision learning why Ultron had created him, and deciding to turn his back on his father. He ended up using the brain patterns of Simon Williams, aka Wonder Man, who was dead at the time, and joined up with the team. Now there's a brief stint where Ultron manages to come back and control Vision, with Vision rebuilding his daddy Dearest a body out of adamantium and battling the Avengers before he regains control yet again. But for the most part now, definitely a good guy. And at 6, Gambit. Gambit, who first hit the scene in 1990's Uncanny X-Men Annual Issue 14, was initially a member of the Thieves Guild prior to becoming a member of the X-Men, which caused many of his fellow teammates to not initially trust him thanks to his criminal past. Gambit, aka Remy Etienne Lebeau, is from Louisiana, and he he was kidnapped from the hospital after he was born by the LeBeau Clan Thieves Guild. He was then referred to as the White Devil, prophesied to unite the warring Thieves and Assassins Guilds. He would spend his childhood years living on the streets until the patriarch of the Thieves Guild, Jean-Luc LeBeau, took him in after Remy tried to pickpocket him. After his mutant abilities manifested in his teen years, he would be hired by Mr. Sinister to steal his diaries back from the Weapon X program. Now he was eventually exiled from the guilds after marrying the granddaughter of the head of the Assassins Guild. Her brother Julian would challenge him to a duel in which he killed Julian, which ended that marriage and exiled him. Kinda makes sense if he killed her brother. He would operate as a professional thief for a while, eventually returning to Mr. Sinister for help with his uncontrollable mutant abilities, and would then become a part of Sinister's group of mercenaries, the Marauders, but eventually left the team, which would lead him to wander the globe for a while. That's when he met Storm. He helped her escape from the Shadow King and eventually was brought over to the X-Men after proving himself a worthy ally to them. Speaking of Gambit, how about we talk about his main love interest in at 5, Rogue. Rogue may be one of the X-Men who come to mind when you think of the popular mutant team, but she wasn't always a member. When she first debuted in Avengers Annual Issue 10 in 1981, penned by Chris Claremont, she was actually a villain. The Southern Belle was a runaway at an early age and ended up being found and adopted by Mystique, who at the time was a member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Mystique had sought Rogue out on the advice and guidance of her precognitive girlfriend Destiny. Raised by Mystique, Rogue's loneliness and angst was turned into anger and used to benefit the Brotherhood, with Rogue engaging in terrorist activities. But then when Rogue kissed a boy named Cody for the first time, she unintentionally rendered him unconscious with her abilities, a traumatic moment that pushed her even further into villainy. The more Rogue used her powers though, the more that she was filled with fragments of psychic echoes of the individuals that she had touched and absorbed. And after she seriously messed up Carol Danvers, who was Miss Marvel at the time, Rogue ended up seeking the help of Professor X to remove Carol's distinct personality from within her. Now, because Carol was half Kree, half human, Charles couldn't really do a quick fix for Rogue, but instead invited her to come to his school and become a probationary member of the X-Men team. Up next at 4, Elektra. Elektra has one of the most visually memorable deaths in the history of comics, and it was that death that really turned her around from villain to anti-hero. Back in Daredevil issue 168 in 1981, Elektra Natchios was introduced by Frank Miller as an assassin and love interest for Daredevil. Sexually assaulted as a young child, Elektra had a very difficult time growing up, and often resorted to self-harm. Eventually though, she would attend Columbia University where she met Matt Murdock and even dated him, until she and her father were abducted by terrorists and her father was gunned down. That's when things took a turn towards criminality. Elektra would flee New York and became a member of the Hand, a sect of mystical ninjas that would train her to be an assassin. She returned to New York where she encountered Matt again, but as Daredevil, with the two becoming enemies and love interests. Eventually she would become the chief assassin of Kingpins, something that would cost her her life when Bullseye, who wanted that position, would get into a fight with her and stab her with her own side. Elektra crawled her way to Matt's house before dying in his arms. When she would be revived later on, she would become more of an anti-hero, first teaming up with Wolverine and later even working with S.H.I.E.L.D. Moving on to number 3, we have Deadpool. Deadpool may be considered the ultimate anti-hero these days, but when he first debuted in Marvel's panels, he was a straight up baddie. The character, who first appeared in the New Mutants issue 98 in 1991, was hired by Tolliver, aka Genesis, to go after and assassinate Cable. Later in X-Force, where he appeared as a recurring character, Deadpool began dabbling in anti-hero territory, despite still being a ruthless assassin and mercenary for hire. During this time he made a handful of cameos as an assassin, but eventually he got his own miniseries in 1993. But his 1997 miniseries penned by Joe Kelly was the one that really defined him, and made him into the lovable sociopath we know today. Up next, number 2, Venom. Venom has a neat origin story. Back in 1984, coming out of Secret Wars, Spider-Man had stumbled upon an alien costume in the Amazing Spider-Man issue 252. Turns out that alien costume was actually much more than some dope new black threads. Instead, it was a sentient alien known as a symbiote, an amorphous liquid-esque extraterrestrial called a Clintar whose survival requires it to bond with the host. Spider-Man would discover its true nature and with the help of the Fantastic Four be separated from the symbiote. But a handful of years later, the symbiote would return in the Amazing Spider-Man issue 300 in 1988, in which it now had a name, Venom. And and had its sights set on a new host who had beef with Spider-Man as well, journalist Eddie Brock, who believed the web-slinger had ruined his career and his life. In Brock's first appearance with Venom, he killed an innocent cop after said cop found his hideout in a church. It's pretty brutal. And a villain he would remain from then on out until Carnage showed up in Spider-Man issue 361, with Spidey teaming up with Venom in order to take on the homicidal symbiote, and Venom agreeing to partner up with Spider-Man on the condition that he was allowed to go free afterwards, which was actually a dirty lie on Peter's part. The Fantastic Four would then drag Venom off to prison after they defeated Carnage together. Ouch. Later on, after breaking out of prison, the two would form a truce after Peter helped Brock save his ex-wife Anne Wang. And that would eventually lead into Venom's first anti-hero storyline, Lethal Protector, where he operated in San Francisco. And finally, in at number 1, Catwoman. Catwoman has always been morally ambiguous. Selina Kyle has been one of Batman's longest running members in his rogue gallery. First appearing in Batman issue 1 in 1940, she was created by Bill Finger and Bob Kane, inspired by Jean Harlow and Kane's cousin Ruth Steele. Initially called the Cat, Selina was a mysterious burglar and jewel thief, a femme fatale who not only antagonized Batman but was also incredibly attractive to him. Despite a brief stint as a reformed villain, she would ultimately return to crime, but always preferred to avoid trying to kill the Cape Crusader in all of her schemes. Selina would then be put on an extended hiatus between 1954 and 1966 due to the Comics Code Authority. Her character was in direct violation to the censorship rules, having been a love interest of Batman's who the character would often treat differently than his other foes. She would commit crimes and he would seemingly let her get away, and being a female character, her portrayal was seen as problematic for how a woman should be at the time. Oh, the 50s. Anywho, when she did return, it was largely thanks to the success the character had in the 60s Adam West Batman television series. Catwoman would come back strong, and in the 90s her stories began to take a turn into anti-hero territory, with her criminality often being because she's just materialistic. She doesn't want to hurt innocent people. She was more of a master thief, but often went out of her way to be mindful to the greater good, sometimes caving on her selfish desires to help others instead. Morally ambiguous, like we said, and it's one of the things that we love most about her character. Alright guys, there we have it. There's a ton of other characters who started off as big bads and have ventured into anti-hero territory, or just straight up hero territory over the years. So if you'd like to see a part 2 of this list, be sure to give us a shout out in those comments below. And while you're at it, why not hit that like button if you dug what you saw today? We also have a nifty little playlist currently flashing on your screen waiting for you to click it, and has a ton of other videos in it that you might like. Kinda like this one. In the meantime though, thanks for watching friends, I'll catch you all in the next video.